I think it's like you talked about with foundational stuff because, again, not to bring it back, but like just to give you an idea of how I've been learning lately. I think the reason why this is sticking with me so hard right now is because I'm learning this lesson like this week in particular. The jiu-jitsu gym that I go to, they have like the fundamental course and they have the advanced course. And the funny thing is sometimes the lesson of the day or the lesson of the week, let's say, is the same, meaning like, in the fundamental class, it's like, okay, guys, today we're learning how to take someone down and go to their mount, right? And in the advanced class, they're doing the same thing, all right? Taking someone down and go to their mount only because it's the advanced class, you're working on more particular things. But it's otherwise like it's overall the same shit, right? So it's fascinating to go to one and then go to the other and like see, because in the advanced class, obviously it being advanced, there's an assumption that you at least kind of know what you're doing. So they don't break down all the basic fundamentals, right? They just kind of overlook a lot because you're supposed to know. And so it's
you're in
it's
the
really,
advanced.
Right. So it's
That's
really
how I
fascinating.
graduated. He's in senior. He must know all this stuff.
Right. So it's really fascinating to see what they leave out, and it's really fascinating to see what they focus on, assuming everything else is there. Like obviously, if you were going to take a guy to the ground, the basics of it are like grab his legs and flip, like basic stuff. But since they don't bother saying any of that, they have the time or the wherewithal to be like, okay, so really make sure that your fingers are like this and your breathing is like this. Stuff that somebody would walk in off the street and be like, what are you talking about? Like, so it's interesting to me how somebody takes something that it's hard to put to words at that really like high level, that really technical level, and break it back down for someone who's a novice. And then as they get better and better, then you get more and more meticulous, even though it's the same thing. It's a takedown.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, if you're asking me, a lot of the stuff that, the things that I can help people on the deepest levels with are all based on my mistakes. Mm-hmm. What I thought was supposed to happen didn't happen, and now I know how to do it. And now it's so blatant. Why would I ever show the other way? So what I like to do, with the dot is I break everything down. If it's only 50 dots, I break it down to 75. Right. And I don't care if I've got somebody brand new or not. I'm going through every single dot. Well, you could do it faster. Hey, where do you come in on the vine, man? If you come in on the vine over here, that's where you start. Yep. Okay. But not everybody has your ability. So chill out and wait until your part comes, or get out and understand that I'm teaching everybody, not you. Mm-hmm, so, not covering, there's so much more to learn inside of the things that you've already learned and have been practicing and making money on that you have no idea. If you just started over everything you're doing, and I don't mean like get a new house and all, I just mean start over, and you'd be surprised. The most simplest thing makes the largest impact. And it's inside you already because you've already done the big stuff. Right. So,
yeah, that is a weird feeling when it's like someone shows something to you and it's like, I'm not surprised. Like I wouldn't call this new information. It's just that it clicked.
Right. Yeah, it clicked. It clicked, or you remembered. You remembered.
Well, yeah, there's some aspect of something I say that clicks with you, and then there's some aspect that somebody else says that makes mine not look as important. It's just, however, whatever you're thinking about may not even be what I'm talking about, and then it clicks. I can't tell you how many times people start talking to me, and I'm like, wait. I wasn't involved in the 10-minute conversation you had in your brain before you actually started talking. So if you could bring me back there, I might be better off to help you. Right. And then that causes them all this. I'm like, you started, this is where you started.
Right.
There's no context, no nothing. But I know that you had a conversation with yourself. You just opened your mouth here.
Yep.
Just go back, and I'll help you.
That's so funny because as I've navigated like different disciplines in dog training, like so my story was I started dog psychology, went into compulsion keeler base, realized that shit was a little too much in some extremes. Then I swung all the way to the other side. I went not pure positive, but definitely a lot of food work, marker based, got better timing, all this stuff. And then I started creating more, and then I started realizing balance was a thing. Right. And then I went to remotes, and then I did all these other things, and then started doing more behavior modification. I find myself now, 13 years into my career, coming back to where I started, right? And the interesting thing is there were things that I learned in each of those disciplines that in those moments I would default to them. Like, when I was in compulsion, I defaulted to compulsion techniques. And when I was in pure positive, or like more motivation based work, I would default to I would have to fight the compulsion. I'd have to fight the urge to do the thing with the leash or whatever it might be. And it was a really confusing process. It was really confusing jumping from these different disciplines. And
real quick, because you have those different disciplines.
Yeah.
If I had time with you, or if you go through I'll be that glue that helps you understand how to use those.
Yeah.
I can't give away my cooperation equation right now, but just understand that when I tell people you need to match the intensity, right? First of all, what people think a dog is barking and growling is intense isn't. It's being sensitive. So, but it's the same fucking word, match the sensitivity. So either match intensity or match sensitivity. For the human, they got to have these extra words. But matching intensity is matching sensitivity. And if you have the ability to do overpower with the keeler and then do the soft stuff with the treats and then the dog psychology, that's where you become what I call a cork on water. And this is where it's at right here. This is what I'm doing. You already have that. You just need to be able to put them all together and utilize them when they're needed and take them off at the same. It's like people who talk Spanish and English in the same conversation sentence. It's like
Spanglish. Oh yeah, that's Spanglish. My house. Yeah.
Right. So being able to do, I work with so many people that are so soft. I say that in the dog world, even owners, the dog trainers, we either overcompensate or we undercompensate. There's just a very rare few that are that middle ball that keeps the table balanced, and so when I have somebody who's so soft, I actually force them to go too hard. I push them and push them and push them
so they can,
and then they can come down, because if right here is where you need to match and somebody comes in here, well, that's round one, so I'm gonna get better. So then I come here. That's round two. I'm getting better. I come here, and then they finally get up here and match the intensity. And look how much higher it was.
Then the original
they had just
goal.
Done it the first time. Okay. You punch me in the stomach. The next time you punch me in the stomach, I'm gonna tighten up. Right. So, and that's just an analogy on intensity versus sensitivity. So what I'm saying with you, you've got at least three different specialties that you work, disciplines that you worked on. You just need to have that little gum that holds them together. Like
and I guess what I would theorize is, when you're learning those instincts, you're developing like reflexive knowledge, right? Like, I can handle aggressive dogs because I dealt with a bunch of them, and I know how to handle on a leash, and I know how to handle them with no leash with my body language, and I know how to do certain things, again, from my early foundation. But at the end of the day, it's like, when I'm trying to fit in all these different principles, the biggest tool is tapping into instinct, tapping into that present moment where it's like, all right, the dog that I know bit 10 people, I have to be present. I have to be here. I have to treat it a certain way, but take my precautions, right? If I need to, right?
Well, and it's fascinating too, because instinct evolves too. So like,
evolve. Or
a
does it
completely
evolve?
Untrained person. Yeah, it does,
tap
because
into
it completely, no, well, it evolves in the sense that Brent 10 years ago would have had a very different instinct.
Yeah.
So it evolves with your knowledge base. Like, as you,
that's called wisdom, what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. But I mean instinct as in, like, it's not even a thought out, like, it's just an automatic response, right? That kind of instinct. Yeah, it's like training. It's like training in military stuff. You said you shot marksman, and like, I know that, meaning shot at the level of marksman, right? So
expert,
I know that.
Expert, no big deal.
I did too. I was trying to humble brag too. I know that. I remember training of when they talk about like a person's intent, right? Eyes, hands, direction of travel type deal. At a certain point, it's not like you're analyzing on the fly. Oh, we're here, his eyes. You just kind of think like, whoa, this person's approaching weird, and it's not necessarily a full on like thought. But my point is, somebody who is, either untrained or somebody who is trained in a different method of dog training, their automatic response, their instinct is going to be different from like a person who, let's say, is a completely opposite end
Yeah,
of
you
that
default
spectrum.
to your highest level of conditioning.
Exactly. So that was kind of my point, was like instinct is fascinating because it evolves into like what your brain kind of tells you in this like fight or flight moment your highest level of success is going to be. Right.
That's interesting.
And the more situations that you're in, the more variations of
Exactly.
commitments and intensity levels that you're in, the smoother it looks when
The
you're
transitions.
working. It looks like I'm tying shoes when I'm working with
Right.
one
Yeah.
dog, because I've worked with 50
I have an
aggressive
idea,
dogs.
Lynn, that I'm not going to waste time on the podcast because we've talked about it before, but I definitely want to get with you and talk to you about it just because it would take time. But I think you'd be interested in it because we're talking about like the delineation between instinct and like developing and kind of curating and trusting that instinct, right? That's a big one too. Versus conditioning, and like not only in the sense of obedience versus behavior, but you were even talking in terms of your trainers, like conditioning their instinct. If you're too soft, I'm going to show you how to be firmer. But how do you take a soft person and actually make, so there was
You
that
have to
element,
push
and
'em.
then right.
But not everybody can do that, though.
Right.
I've had people try to teach clients the way I taught them, and you can't talk to people like that, because I have the ability to make someone feel small and insecure, and in the next moment make them feel big
Like $1,000,000.
confident.
Right.
You can't, you can't just talk that way because Lynn did.
Yeah.
You got to be
Right.
able to understand the cork on water.
Right. Well, so I guess the point I'm making is, there seems to be this dance in all of dog training, not just with the dog itself, but with the client, or in our cases, like with shadows, because I have a shadow too, and and other trainers, and there seems to be this dance of like, there's a certain level of instinct and pressure, like we were talking about, like real pressure, where just someone else just being in the room kind of creates a certain amount of pressure, like putting a dog in with like 50 other dogs.
Pressure.
Right. Even if the dogs aren't responding to him at all, they could care less. Still, the one dog is like, where the fuck am I? And there's a certain pressure in a sense, right? So I guess, yeah, I'd like to touch base with you more on this idea, because it to me, it's a really cool way to start fleshing out, like, how do you meet, like, how do you mesh the difference between like instinctual things and conditioning, right? Because one does affect the other, as we were talking about. If instincts evolve, part of it was conditioning. You've conditioned your instincts to, now I'm a dog trainer who does this and this and this and this, so now my instinct is X. But 5 years ago, when I was already dog training, but I wasn't as sharp on whatever, my instincts were different, right? So there is this fascinating push and pull where they affect each other like both ways.
Once it gets into the instincts, you're not thinking 1 + 1 will equal 2. It just happens because of a feeling or an energy. I feel things from the dog. There have been videos up where dog trainers like, what a piece of shit trainer. What's he doing sitting down with a German Shepherd that reactive? I'm like,
right.
You're not seeing the same thing I am. I don't care that he went and bit my hand.
Right.
The dog has no intention to kill me.
Yeah.
And I am fully aware of what I'm going to do. That's where rule number 1 comes in. And rule number 1 is always be in control. And I'm not talking about controlling.
Sure.
Rule number 1 is it's as deep and wide as you want to go, but self-control is the most important form of control. And if somebody's worried about what a dog is going to do, then they don't have self-control. I'm concerned about what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to affect this dog's state of mind. I know what it wants to do. I know what it can do. I know what it has done. And I don't think about what can happen to me if that happens. I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. I'm communicating. Nothing else exists around me when I'm communicating with a dog, unless I'm narrating. And there are many, and if somebody can't narrate what they're doing while they're working with a dog, I've got some things to say about teaching. There are times when I'm working with a dog and I'm narrating, and I'll say, okay, I can't talk to you right now. I gotta I
You got to be
I can't
present.
split my focus
Right.
You got to be
because
present.
of that, but I'll get right back to you.
Right.
And I only need sometimes 5 seconds, sometimes 5 minutes, and then I'm back to narrating because I
Right.
have
Right.
the
Right.
majority of the mind with me.
Mhm.
But instinct, if you have instincts in other areas of your life, you can tap into them when you're
Mhm.
working with dogs. I have a high level of survival instincts from growing up the way I did,
Mhm.
and so you know,
You're able to
I
decipher what a true threat is versus what.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. Well, when you live in an environment that's always a threat, and you've got to watch out for a hammer or a plunger or when you're in the boat,
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
got amazing peripheral vision. That's
Mm.
one of the best things that's ever came out of my growing up.
Mhm.
Amazing peripheral vision, and that is incredible and valuable when working with dogs because
Mhm.
they have incredible peripheral vision too.
Mhm.
And so just using instincts from other parts of your life, and if you can't figure out how to use it in this part of your life, that's the only goal. How do I use this instinct over here? Oh, okay, it's like this. And then boom, all of a sudden it's like somebody pulled a cork out of your head and you say, I know
Mhm.
Kung Fu, you know, from the Matrix, because it's
Yeah.
everything I did the way I grew up and didn't even understand what I knew about people. Then I was in the Marine Corps. I was in reconnaissance. So obviously I'm more aware of
Right.
everything. And
Right.
then I was a waiter for a decade where I'm doing
Mm.
more sales and
Influencing.
Mhm.
Influencing.
Fast
influencing
paced
things.
moving
Yeah.
and
And
yeah.
as soon as I spent just this amount of time with Caesar, I was like, everything that I already knew that I didn't know that I knew came
Yeah.
rushing in.